We're live.
Woo-hoo!
Welcome, everyone, to the Magic Online Halloween Party story time. Magic story time. So I am so grateful to be here today with my good dear friend, as well as colleague, co-creator, all the things, Cass Hepburn. Cass, thanks for being here.
Oh, it's so fun to be here, and thank you for wedging me into it.
My pleasure.
You tickled me.
I tickled. Yeah. So Cass is an international best-selling author. Cass, you write kind of all over, right? Not just kind of one genre. So tell me, like, what do you love writing about?
It really varies. For a while, I was identifying myself more as a poet. And I had written children's short stories before that I'd never really done anything with, except for sent them to one publisher that never responded, and I went, didn't submit anymore. And like a lot of people, I was introduced to a book called The Artist's Way, which has you write every morning, write morning pages. And when I started doing that, after a while, through all that clutter and clatter of stuff that was in my head, children's stories and poems started coming out when I was writing. And so I do a bit of poetry, which is more prose. I don't rhyme very often. Not on purpose, anyway.
No rhyming, no rapping.
Not yet, anyway. And children's stories and short stories for adults.
Oh. And you've also wrote in a few kind of compilation books.
Mm-hmm.
So those are cool. On what were some of the topics?
Magic. The first one that we both wrote in together, pregnancy, birth.
Oh yeah, fertility, creations, pregnancy, birth. It's a long title. That's what I remember. But it started with creations.
Yeah, that one. Prior to that, I'd been in another one. I'd written a short story in a book that a group of us wrote to raise money for a art program for women who are just getting off of the street for art supplies and stuff.
Amazing.
Stories from the Button Jar. And they were inspired by buttons. One of the women who ran the art program, when she was like 9, she bought this big jar of buttons, and each of us went up and chose one and then saw what it inspired.
Wow.
Really cool. It was such an amazing experience. So, yeah.
That has such a really palpable, magical energy to it for me. Yeah. Welcome, everyone joining us. I see Dr. Aiton. I see Leonie here. Hello.
Hello, everyone.
I think Alicia's here. Gala, Connie, Jennifer, Lorraine, Oana, Jessica. Hi, everyone. Welcome. And if you guys have any questions for Cass, please feel free to throw them in. I'm pulling as much from her until I let her read, because I'm so excited to have her here. So Halloween.
Yes.
Right? The magic of Halloween. You have written, so you wrote something for this. How long ago did you write this?
Just in the last couple of weeks, I think. Maybe 2 weeks.
3 weeks.
Yeah, I we were talking earlier about doing the morning pages and stuff. I haven't, for the last few years, I haven't been able to make myself do them. Or if I'll do it like 1 or 2 days and then I stop. And then a few weeks ago, I jumped into a publish a book in 40 days program. And effortlessly, I'm writing every morning.
Oh!
And you kind of tickled me into, you said, would you do a reading? And then later you said, and would you write something for it? And I'm like, no, I don't think so.
But then you did.
Probably the next morning or 2 mornings later, I sit down to do whatever writing. And here's the beginning of this story.
As if by magic.
As if by magic. Which is kind of how I write a little bit. I thought this project that I'm working on was going to be short stories for adults, which the first one almost was, and then it kind of took a turn. And then the next morning, so I'm kind of working on 3 different things at once, which I've discovered is how I write most easily.
Isn't that funny?
Not so much.
Yeah, I love that you said that. Oh, now I'm seeing more comments. Alicia's saying, amazing, Cassie. How did we get so lucky? Jennifer's sending hearts. Yeah, it's really interesting because you think that you have all these, this is how you're supposed to write, or this is how you're supposed to do something. And when you get really kind of intimate with yourself and your own writing techniques, and you start to go, oh, actually writing 3 to 5 things at the same time is way more generative, and I write way more content. And
yeah. Otherwise, I sit there with the blank page in front of me going, and nothing.
Nothing. Wow. So, Cass, when did you start writing?
I think I'd always dabbled, we all do in school and things like that, but I never liked what I wrote before. And then I would always write. I would write a little poetry when I'd be in a new relationship or something, which I didn't always share. And, and I think I was trying to rhyme back then too. And and it really was, I was living with an old boyfriend who wrote poetry. And one of our friends, it was just when The Artist's Way was first published. And I was I'd been doing a lot of sort of internal work on myself and was looking for ways to start to be a little more creative, because I didn't see myself as a creative person at all.
Wow. Because that's how I see you, but that's so cool. Yeah.
A lot of people did. And I'm like, no, I'm not like that.
Oh, no.
Which is what happens when we're trying to create the way we see people around us create. And if we don't do it that way, then we go, oh, well, I can't do that. Excuse the background noise. Aladdin found his bone.
Aladdin's her sweet pup. Oh, Alicia has a question for you. So she loves seeing your ink and parchment. Do you always write with pen and paper, or do you ever write on a laptop?
I do both. With this project, I'm really drawn to go back to the page and use colored inks and different things like that. That's inspiring me. So I have a little music playing. I like candles. I have my pot of tea, and all those different things really add to the experience for me.
Oh, I love it.
And when Then I take it, and often, if it's a story, it will expand as I'm writing it onto the laptop.
So then you'll go in and you'll input it. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, last chance, guys. Well, actually, you could ask her questions after as well. I'm just kind of getting really excited to hear it.
This will be the first time reading this one to somebody, so.
Oh, I feel so lucky that we get to hear it.
I'm hoping afterward we don't pan on to Cassie and she's like.
And I've just had a delicious magical nap because your beautiful voice. Oh, Alicia says, she's had massive resistance to the artist way. Maybe it's time for another look. Thank you for sharing. And she loves hearing how you write. Oh, Leonie says she's curious too. Cool. Well, any other? Yeah, go ahead.
Even I was resistant about the entire book, The Artist's Way. So there were two things that I really pulled from it. One was the morning pages, but I couldn't do them the way she did. She doesn't even get out of bed. She wakes up in the morning and writes. I have to go to the bathroom. There's practical things to take care of. And first thing doesn't always work. There's days like yesterday where it's the afternoon when all of a sudden there's the words. So the kind of regimented sit and do something at the same time every day, not going to happen for me. That may work beautifully for some people. That kind of takes fun out of it. And the other tool in there is taking yourself on an artist date. And you might go to an art gallery. You might go to a place that sells beautiful paper and pens. Or just walk around some place that's beautiful that inspires you. And you do it on your own.
I love those tools. And it seems like, Cass, like you're using like question, like what does work for me? What does inspire me? How is this fun for me? What can I like? So you talk about lighting candles and creating that like ambiance for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if people are looking at getting into their own practice of writing, what works for you? What is fun? It might be setting a time and doing it every day, because for some people that works really well. I found as soon as I started playing with different colored inks, and I've got a glass pen and the little ink wells, and you can keep on changing colors and sometimes get a variation of colors together, and yeah. Right?
Later, I think we need a snapshot of what this looks like. We need to post it because we're excited. Karen says when she writes, she can't stop. And Jennifer says, so lucky. I adore you, Cass Hepburn. I can't wait to hear this magical creation. Thank you. And everyone's just really grateful. Oh, and now they're excited about inks. Well, shall we?
We shall.
Or shall we do? Okay. So I'm gonna pop off camera and then I'll jump on when you're done.
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. This is the worst Halloween ever. And I'm going to read this like I'm a young girl. So use your imagination. Hey, I'm Claire. And for the first time ever, I'm not looking forward to Halloween. I think this is going to be the worst Halloween ever. Now, you probably don't know this, but I love Halloween. My family loves Halloween. It's one of our favorite times of the whole year. But we just moved to a new town that's a 5-hour drive from my Nana and all my friends in Vancouver. Who was I going to go trick-or-treating with this year? Or go through our treat bags at the end of the night to find the best candy? Who could I stay up late telling scary stories with? And who would I laugh with over some of the silly tricks we would have to do at our neighbors' houses? And my Nana is the best storyteller ever. Some of my friends wonder how much of the stories she makes up and how much is really real. Well, I kind of know that question. You see, my family is kind of unusual. Well, we're actually a whole lot of unusual. My Nana talks to and sees spirits and ghosts. She likes to call them entities, which are beings that don't have a body. She's been able to sense them her whole life. She told me for a long time she was really scared of it. Like when she and her parents lived in a really haunted house where weird things were always happening. Things like the stove would start to shoot sparks. And one day, the iron, when her mom was ironing, she put it down for a minute and the entire thing melted into a pool of metal onto the floor. And she remembers being so frightened there, especially in her room at night, even with the nightlight on that her mom bought her. She felt like she was being watched, especially at night and sometimes even through the day. And sometimes she would see things moving out of the corner of her eye, but when she turned around, it would stop. She hated going down to the basement alone. And she was so happy when her parents moved out of that house. Her mom, my great-grandma, she couldn't sense ghosts or entities. But sometimes she would get visions of things before they happened. Like she would see a picture in her mind or a movie. My mom, Becky, has that talent too. You could tell when it's happening with my mom. Her green eyes get really kind of misty, and it looks like she's seeing something really far away. But our family has learned to listen to these visions. When my mom was little, one day her big sister was going to drive her to the store. My great-grandma had kept seeing two cars crashing into each other for days. And my mom didn't really want to go with her sister that day. And while they were out driving the car, another car ran into them. They were really shaken up, but no one was seriously injured, luckily. After that, my family really listened when my great-grand or my mom would have these visions, and nobody made fun of them anymore. As for me, I'm like my Nana. I sense ghosts and spirits when they're around. I only see them sometimes as a flash of light or movement, but I really feel them with my body. Sometimes I feel really heavy, like I'm walking through mud. Kind of crazy, right? Or sometimes it's goosebumps, or the room gets really cold all of a sudden. Sometimes even the hair on the back of my neck stands up. And then there's times when I feel like a gentle brush against my arm or my shoulder. First time that happened, I just about lost it. But then I realized it was very gentle and caring. At first, all of these things were kind of scary. But when I talked to my mom about it, and then Nana showed me how to use this talent, who knew this was a talent, right? That really changed everything once I knew what to do. When I realized a lot of these spirits might be kind of lost, and some didn't even know they didn't have a body or weren't alive anymore, then I stopped being afraid. There was nothing to be afraid of. Not all my friends know this about me or my family, but my best friends, Carly, Rita, and Tom, do. They love hearing stories from me and Nana, and all three of them can kind of sense how some places just feel different than others. Like when we were playing one day around an old deserted house in our neighborhood, they all noticed something and asked, "Do you think there's something here?" And I do what my Nana taught me to do. Rather than tell them what I sense, I ask them questions so they can learn better their own way. So now here I am again wondering, how on earth can I have fun this Halloween without my Nana and my friends? I don't really know any of the kids at school yet. And even though Mom says we're going to have a party on Halloween, I don't even know who I would invite. Then something wonderful happened. I kept hoping to meet someone who might be kind of strange and gifted like I am. Then on the way home from school yesterday, I took a shortcut through the woods. I hadn't been this way before, and it was really pretty. When I came closer to an old pine tree, I could hear someone talking. And when I got closer, I could see someone sitting there talking to the tree. She sat with her eyes closed, talking for a while, and then she'd stop like she was listening. And I could see a squirrel curled up, sleeping in her lap. I didn't want to startle her or frighten her and thought about going back and turning around and going the other way. When she sensed my presence, she sensed that I was there and opened her eyes. I realized this was Crystal from my class at school. I'd often noticed her at lunch or recess sitting on her own and had wanted to join her but was nervous. She has long blonde hair that's almost white, way down past her waist, and at school she wears it in a long braid down her back. And she has the bluest eyes I've ever seen. They're almost the color of a robin's egg. Crystal smiled at me when she saw who I was and said, "Hi, Claire. I was hoping we'd have a chance to talk sometime away from school. You're welcome to come and join me." I eagerly sat down with her and asked her some questions. She told me she came from a family that called themselves green witches. Their talents were communicating with animals and nature spirits, working with herbs for healing, and growing plants. We had the best conversation sitting under that beautiful tree. As we were sitting there, animals like raccoons and deer came so close I could have touched them. And the quail that are usually so afraid of people were eating right at our feet. It was kind of like sitting there with Snow White. It was so magical being there with her and talking about things I rarely get to talk about with anybody. I asked her if she'd like to come over to my house, and her whole face lit up. With a smile, she said, "I've been wanting and hoping to meet someone my age for so long that was a little weird and kind of strange like me, someone I can really talk to." "Me too," I said. We headed for my house once she'd called her mom and we'd found out if it was okay. When we arrived, I could see Mom had started to decorate for Halloween. The pumpkins sat along the front steps, and Dad had brought out the big barrel that we would do apple bobbing for apples in. Dad was putting up fairy lights around the big front porch and through the trees in the yard. We ran up the stairs together and into the house, into the huge kitchen. My mom loved this room, where she could create a feast, and it was still big enough to have a huge table and lots of people could hang out there together. I introduced Crystal to my mom, who laughed and said, "I just met your mother this morning when we were both buying things for Halloween. And if it's okay with you two, we're going to celebrate Halloween together here this year. Would you girls like that?" "Yes," we squealed together. "And your Nana called to say she'll be here for the party too, Claire." "Wait till you hear my Nana's Halloween stories, Crystal. She tells the very best ever." And then together we ran upstairs to plan our costumes and some games for the party. This wasn't going to be the worst Halloween ever. It was going to be the best one yet. The end.
Oh, so good. I was like a kid again. And I'm like, I remember what that's like when you meet someone and you're instant best friends and just like all the stuff. Oh, it's so good, Cass. Thank you.
Well, I think that's a lot of what we do when we write is we're inserting little bits of ourselves in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so magical. I think everyone's quiet. I think everyone just like went on this magical journey with you and we're all like, whoa.
It's so funny when you share your own writing. It really is like sharing a piece of yourself.
Yeah.
And there's that, oh, I hope everybody likes it, and that okay, here I am standing naked for a moment.
Yeah. Well, you did naked beautifully.
One of the very best performances I ever saw was a poet who she was performing on Commercial Drive in Vancouver, and as she was telling her reading her poem, and it was kind of spoken word with that rhythm and stuff, she completely stripped naked there on the stage.
Wow.
And didn't break a beat at one during the entire time, and then she got herself dressed again. And I'd never seen anything like that before. Her courage, everybody was in tears. It was
Wow.
That's an amazing performance. And that's what we can do with our art.
Yeah.
We can touch people with our words. We can allow people to know that they're not alone. They're not the only one that have thought or experienced or felt or sensed something.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, well, let's read some of these comments. So Leonie says, "Yay, loved it, Cass. Thank you for sharing your story with us." Jackie says, "This is so good, Cass. Loved it. Such a warm, fun feeling." Exactly. Yeah. Alicia said, "Magical. Loved it." Leonie said, "That was badass sharing your writing with us." Loved it. Jackie said, "An amazing naked story."
I would love to find that poet again.
Yeah.
I have no idea who she was.
But she made an impact, right? And that's so amazing. And what's possible, being willing to be naked with your art and your whatever your gift is to the world.
Yeah, it's so true. Like how many, even with, we take memes so for granted now because we see them all the time, yet how much impact when somebody creates one, whether it's the word, the art, the entire thing together, how many people stop in their day and go,
yeah,
receive
from it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I am so grateful, and everyone here is so grateful too. If you guys, in the description, I put a link to Cass's website if you want to find out more of her writing or just any of her magic. She does a lot more than writing, but writing is definitely one of her gifts, her magical gifts. Oh, it was so cool, like perceiving the girl talking to the tree, and then the one that could see the visions of the future, like that, and then the gift with entities. Like, it was so cool to play with all those possibilities. So Cass has a lot of knowledge, information, gifts, magic to contribute. So please feel free to reach out, find more. She's also on Facebook, obviously. Yeah. And I'm just so grateful. Thank you.
And thank you so much for making me stretch and step up and do this. And and thank you for everything you do and you be. You're such a blessing in my life, and I love when we both get to play with our words, creating things together. It's so much fun.
It is so much fun.
I wonder what else.
Me too. I'm like, there's so many things like whispering and chattering right now. There's possibilities of a future for our children. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And that's, when I was actually hearing this, I was also perceiving, kids in the future, hearing this story and like what that would facilitate for them and awaken for them. So my next little wedgie is you're going to get this illustrated and published, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Maybe that wasn't a wedgie. She's like, yeah, I'm already on the way.
This is one of the creations that came through in this book challenge. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I can't wait to see it in print too and have it and read it to my kidlets.
Thank you. This has been, and thank you everybody for being here. And it's been so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I just ran out of words.
Like,
thank you.
Thank you. Have a beautiful day, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.